Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
So, plagiarised spousal speeches, endorsements that didn't actually endorse, and a Republican Party convention that's currently breaking just about every political convention in the book. There is, it's fair to say, little sign that Donald Trump will be letting down the headline writers anytime soon. Emily Maitlis is at the convention in Cleveland, where Trump is due to make his acceptance speech later tonight.
Yes, thanks, James. The last day of convention is traditionally the long-awaited finale, the climax where you get to see the bride. Except this bride has been in his wedding dress pretty much all week. We've heard from Donald Trump every single day so far. Last night there were spectacular scenes on the floor behind me, boos from the delegates when Ted Cruz, his rival, failed to endorse Donald Trump as president. What was all that about? Well, it's hard to escape a sense perhaps of puppetry, that this whole thing might be a little bit stage managed by the Trump campaign. Is that a thought too much? We'll be talking to Ben Carson, a former presidential candidate, about that in a second. But first, to the drama of the night and why it matters to Trump and his electoral chances.
Please welcome United States Senator Ted Cruz of Texas.
This is how it all begins. An electric atmosphere from an auditorium bursting at the seams. They're waiting to see if the Texas senator, longtime rival of Donald Trump, chooses this critical moment to endorse him. As he nears the end, the hall suddenly realizes he won't. Watch what happens now.
God bless each and every one of you, and God bless the United States of America.
Ted Cruz is slimy. He should have endorsed Donald Trump.
He made it very clear that he is not interested in Donald Trump winning. He wants Hillary to win so that he can run in 2020.
What we just saw on the convention floor was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, and I cannot endorse it. We just booed someone who cordially spoke.
And where was Donald Trump whilst all this was going on? Well, he chose that moment to enter the hall. Ted Cruz's failure to endorse Donald Trump here a few moments ago led to boos from the hall and indeed accusations of betrayal, but it's also spawned a certain level of conspiracy theory. How did Ted Cruz get that speech through Donald Trump's campaign when it appeared on the teleprompter? Could it be that Trump knew exactly what Ted Cruz was going to say or what he was not going to say and allowed it to create even more hype for this convention? And today, Trump's team confirmed they were given the speech 3 days ago. If the party seemed fractured before convention, imagine how it's feeling right now. Virtually the only thing they can still agree on is how much they hate Hillary, as celebrated here in convention kitsch as Trump himself. To understand why the endorsement, what they're calling the Lone Star snub, matters, you have to leave urban Cleveland and head south to farmland. This is Cruz country, the traditional, religious Republican heartland. No fans of Trump. It's not as if Ohio's cowboys aren't used to irascible and unpredictable beasts, like the bulls they try and ride here and bring to heel. They can see Trump stands for big bucks. It's just not the big bucks they're used to.
For most of these guys, there is an internal thing that's dying in this day and age. They're strong, they're tough, they're a hero, they work hard, and they hold to their values and their families and things that matter to them that society is losing track of.
This is conservative America, not natural Trump territory. He is, of course, a metrosexual New Yorker. He's not the one they wanted. He gets plenty of people's backs up, but they prefer him to Hillary.
It's a little bit of like picking the lesser of two evils at this point. And so who do we feel like will allow us to hang on to these livelihoods and the freedoms that we've had, whether it's being able to pray at a rodeo or pray in school, as long as we can.
The Thorsell family run this event from their ranch.
Our hearts really are God family country, and that's where we stand.
And does Donald Trump say to you, God, family, country?
He says to us,
Yes,
America.
America. He's for America. He said, let's make America great again.
Not to pick a fight or anything, but when you look at Donald Trump, he doesn't strike you as particularly religious. He's had 3 wives. Does he fit into your image of what the priorities for you and for America are?
There isn't anybody that's perfect.
Right.
But you have to look at overall, what does that person or the other person stand for?
Right.
And where do you receive the most value? And he might not be the perfect, what you think a president ought to be.
Right.
But for us, he stands for more of our values than any of the other candidates.
At this time.
Trump's harnessed white working class support with extraordinary success. But if traditional rural Republicans choose to stay home, it could all come to nothing. He's hoping his VP choice, evangelical Christian Mike Pence, who talks their language of God, country and party, is the man to bring them on side. And maybe he can. But here's his problem. He spoke at length last night, but after what they're calling Booze Cruise, no one can quite remember a word he said. Well, Ted Cruz was explaining his actions today. He said he didn't want to be a servile puppy to Trump after he'd insulted his wife and father. And there'll be many who understand, even sympathise with that line of thought, somebody sticking to their guns. But there are many who don't. Now, Ben Carson was one of those presidential candidates, and I spoke to him just before we came on air. Ben Carson, sir, was Ted Cruz right not to endorse Donald Trump last night?
I don't think so. I think it was a splendid opportunity for him to demonstrate leadership, bring unity, and set himself up politically in the future.
He said he didn't want to be the puppy dog that came running after Donald Trump, who'd abused, name-called his wife and his father. Do you understand that?
I understand from a perspective of somebody who's more concerned about their own feelings than they are about the big picture. But this election is about much more than someone's views, feelings. You know, there are many others, you know, in the Never Trump movement who have bruised feelings, many of the traditional members of the Republican Party. They need to understand that we're talking about whether this is going to become a country that is upformed by the government versus upformed by the people.
Were you one of those with bruised feelings? Were you approached by Mr. Trump to be his VP?
I was not bruised in any way, shape, or form. The only reason that I ever got into the political arena at all, had no intention of doing it, was because there were so many people clamoring for me to do it.
Clearly, Donald Trump had seen the speech from Ted Cruz 3 days previously and allowed it to go ahead. Do you think that was all part of the stage management, the reality show?
Well, if it was a brilliant move, because it certainly will have the desired effect of separating Ted Cruz from Ted Cruz supporters.
What do you think that Donald Trump should say to the party, to the hall tonight? What would you like to hear?
Well, I would like him, first of all, to help people to understand that, you know, we're not talking about 4 years or 8 years in terms of the influence of the next president. We're talking about generations, because there'll be 2 to 4 Supreme Court picks and multiple federal appointments as well. And people have to be able to look beyond their bruised feelings. And also, I hope he will get people to understand that there are no 2 people who agree about everything.
Yeah, but there's no 2 people in the Republican Party who agree about anything. The party's never been this divided.
I'm not sure that that's true. But what they need to learn how to do is to put those things they disagree with behind them. That's one of the things that I have to admire the Democrats about. You know, they have a lot of disagreements too, but they understand that if they don't work together as a bloc, they diminish their influence. And they also tell the Republicans, you guys are admirable because you are people of principle, and you won't vote for somebody unless you completely agree with them. And then they go home and laugh because they say, we got this in the bag.
So who missed a trick here? Was that Mr. Trump's problem? Was it Cruz's problem? Was it the process itself? How did the party end up like this?
Well, the party has been this way because we have an outsider, somebody who cannot be bought and sold, somebody who cannot be controlled by the traditional political machine. So this is really new territory. And there's going to be an adjustment period to it. But I think once that adjustment has occurred, it will be like a reset, because this country was really about the will of the people. It wasn't about the will of a political class.
As you know, there are people around the world who say there is no more terrifying prospect than a Trump presidency and what he could do in power. Your response?
Simply because they've been listening to the propaganda. That's all it is. It's propaganda.
Ben Carson there describing to me the sense of what an outsider does to the race and how it just needs a bit of bedding in time perhaps. Well, Molly Ball is from The Atlantic. Very nice of you to join us. And Molly, you've had a little bit of an advanced sight of the speech tonight. I know you can't say too much, but you can give us a direction or a flavour.
Yes, well, I think the themes that we would expect Donald Trump to hit are all in there. He is trying to present a unifying general election message, and he's hitting the themes that have defined him from the beginning, the themes about chaos, disorder, crime, safety, whether the threats are internal from chaos in America's inner cities to external threats, particularly immigration, but also foreign threats, the threat of ISIS. So it's very much about making America safe and also trying to bring America together, accusing the president and Hillary Clinton of dividing Americans against each other and positioning himself as the one who can reconcile the warring.
Hillary has been so present in this convention. I don't think I've ever been anywhere where, you know, somebody who was painted as the external enemy was actually in every single speech 20, 30 times.
Well, she's the only thing that all these people agree on. As we've seen with all of the divisions in the party throughout the primary season, but spilling out into the convention where customarily you paper over differences and everybody pretends to hold hands, even on the convention floor with Ted Cruz's speech was the specter of disunity. So it's understandable when they agree on so little, from the issues to the candidate, that the Republican speakers would seek to rally their faithful mainly by what they're against.
And is the Ted Cruz situation actually damaging to Trump?
I think it is. I think Ted Cruz reminded a lot of conservatives and a lot of Republicans of why they have doubts about Trump. And now it was very poorly received here in the hall, and it may not have been good for Ted Cruz. A lot of people saw it as of a piece with his very politically calculating persona. But it would be better for Trump to seem to be the consensus choice of the entire Republican Party, and there's no way he can claim to be that after the speech that Ted Cruz gave last night.
So what is your sense of how the convention has gone, how well it served Trump and his campaign?
This has been an astonishingly bad convention for Donald Trump. Usually, as I said, conventions are a show. They're a free infomercial to the American people where you get all this primetime television real estate to make the positive case for your party, for your candidacy. Instead of that being the message from this convention, there has been one mess up after another, from convention logistics to the potential First Lady's speech to the Ted Cruz speech last night and many other small things where the message that the campaign would like to be putting forward to the American people has really gotten stepped on. And if people wanted to be reassured about Donald Trump, that he was a normal candidate, a credible candidate, a unifying candidate, that's not what they saw in these last few days.
Molly, thanks very much indeed. And I guess that's the essence really of Trump, that anyone else you'd expect to unify, to bring the party together, to try and leave this on a positive note. But Donald Trump has done everything differently over the last 18 months. He showed that you can break all the rules and still win. Can he go into this presidential campaign with a divided party and still win? It's not impossible. Back to you.
Emily, thanks very much indeed. Now, Parliament broke up for the summer today, but not before the government could avail themselves of the opportunity to stick out some
I think the single biggest thing that's come out in the mass of documents is something actually so big you could see it from space. There are enormous problems in the NHS. We've got news of the NHS accounts today which show huge holes. The NAO, the National Audit Office, the bean counters have said they're very worried about the future finances. And we have this rather extraordinary document called Strengthening Financial Performance and Accountability in 2016-17 from a slightly obscure NHS quango. And it is astounding. There are three big things I sort of want to draw to your attention. The first is this document proposes a degree of command and control from the centre of NHS hospitals of the like we have not seen for a very long time. Things like the amount that hospitals are spending on staff, they propose to control. And if hospitals don't do what they say, they'll take cash off them. The second thing that's extraordinary about this is there is, in health service terms, a holy trinity. There you can change the finances of the NHS, you can change the quality of services, you can change how long people have to wait to get services. If you move any one of those things, well, something else has to move. You have to put more money in or make people wait longer, or whatever else. What's really striking is they're absolutely prioritising getting finances back in order. They don't really mind about waiting lists growing. Quality is the thing that sort of ranked number 2 in that list of 3. The final thing that's really extraordinary about this document, it is amazingly optimistic. Hospitals that are really struggling on finances, where all the indicators are going in the wrong direction, they're all going to turn it around in the next few months. I would bet, based on this, that we're going to see a reasonable sized bailout for the NHS in the autumn statement. I don't see how they can make it work otherwise.
And I would bet that's your holiday reading sorted. Many thanks indeed, Chris Cook.